Here we go. This is Silicon Reel, the video podcast dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I'm Brian Rose. I also host London Reel, which is a similar three-person format. We had Bruce Perry from the BBC series Tribe a few weeks ago. We've had Tim Ferriss, futurist Jason Silva, and drug smuggler Howard Marks have all been here in studio. Today on Silicon Reel, my co-host is entrepreneur Colin Pyle, who comes to London from Toronto. You might have seen him riding motorcycles across China and India and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
It's
number 14.
Number 14. We're not playing around, are we?
Not playing around.
It's whizzing by, you know.
Are we into our second season now?
Yeah, we've just got picked up for a second season. I would tell people our new hit series. Yeah, YouTube.
That's when the syndication really kicks in, right?
Yeah, that's when I think it's 100 episodes. So then it's just a money train.
Sure. Let's get there.
Yeah, we're going to work on it. Our guest today is Mr. Alex Hoye, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Faction Collective, which is a Swiss-based manufacturer of skis, poles, helmets, and soft goods. Previously, you were CEO of Latitude Digital Marketing, which was one of Europe's largest. And you've been an active angel investor since, I think, 2006. You were also the founder and maybe chairman of the ICE Group, which stands for the International Conclave of Entrepreneurs.
There's a story to that. But I would say co-founder on that one.
Okay, co-founder. We got to hear all about ICE. It sounds, it sounds very mysterious, definitely. Alex, thanks for being here. Welcome to Silicon Reel.
Well, thank you. It's very cool to be here.
You know, it's hard to know where to start with you because you know you've been around in this business for so long. But I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about digital marketing because it's a phrase that we hear a lot about, and I always wonder if there's people making money off digital marketing that don't know what they're doing, and I always wonder if digital marketing is the Levi Strauss of the 1849 gold rush. You know what I mean? As if it's like those are the guys making the money while all the big corporates are looking for the gold and don't know what's going on. So I at least wanted to get your opinion on that before we get into everything else that you do.
Sure. Well, you know, digital marketing comes in different forms. And, you know, if you look at what I think is the coolest and most effective, mostly it's about whenever brands are able to have a dialogue with consumers and, you know, they are engaging. And engagement is really the evolution of digital marketing and something that you just couldn't really do before. It was always mass media broadcast or something like that. And with engagement, it's about stories, it's about people. So that's the coolest part of what digital marketing is today, and it's not, you know, that different to, you know, PR and, you know, talk shows and stuff like that, but just a lot of interaction. People can talk back, people can get involved. So that's the coolest thing that's going on in digital marketing now. And then with that, you know, what I find is a lot of times corporations are, you know, we got to get us some of that. Let's hire somebody to do that. And some of that you can't outsource. You got to be authentic. You got to be you know, involved. But that's totally changing the structure of marketing and the consumer relationship with the brand as well. Because then the next step from there is it becomes commerce. And it used to be that there was a kind of a cascade from the brand to maybe a distributor to maybe a wholesaler to shop manager to buyer, and now it's straight shot, right? The other kind of new thing in digital marketing is called native, where, you know, the line between content and commerce starts getting pretty kind of blurred, but in a good way. So the old school way to look at that is fashion magazines. You know, the ads are part of the thing you're buying the magazine for, and, you know, it's, wow, that's pretty cool. And in the same way, you know, an article might be talking about travel or something like that, and it just becomes really easy to, you know, get off there and, you know, catch a video on the place you're looking at or something. So I think those are the cool areas of digital marketing now. And then there's where most of the money is, which isn't there yet. You know, those are kind of more on the edge. And where most of the money is, the people making the money are mostly Mountain View. It's Google, right?
Okay.
And
Google ads,
search ads, that kind of thing.
Search ads.
Okay.
So, you know, when you've got somebody with intent, they've typed in, you know, rental car, Biarritz. You know, you've already solved half your problem. You're not broadcasting. You're really nailing that. And so they really got that well. And agencies and individuals who can help do that marketing may be more qualified or less qualified than you might think, but I mean, Google just does a pretty good job of getting what's called direct response, and it's hard to beat that. But most of that flow through, because there's been a lot of competition, because Google does make it easy. The margins have definitely gotten a lot tighter for those agencies. You got to be doing more interesting stuff like retargeting through display ads. You probably clicked on something.
We've all been
and
retargeted.
then that
right?
stuff stalked you for weeks. Across every website you go to, there it is again. No, I already bought it. Stop. But the reason that people do that with the display ads and retargeting with companies like Strzok and Criteo or Criteo, however you want to say it, is it works.
It's like when you see that you have to see something like 7 or 9 times. Isn't it
like 10 touch points or something before you buy it, or I don't know. Is that accurate?
Well, the
these
touch
days?
points,
or is that changed now because it's digital?
Yeah, it hasn't changed, and the touch points, when you talk about it that way, it could be I read an article about this new camera type, and then I saw it in a display ad, and then I saw it in a blog, and then my friend mentioned it, and then I bought it, right? So that's kind of the touch point kind of approach.
Right.
But the other way you can shortcut that is that I went and browsed it, and now it's following me. I can't get rid of it. It's like a zombie.
And it's on my Facebook, and
yeah, exactly.
Do you miss it? Do you miss that whole side of digital marketing, or did you kind of run its course with what you did, and you want to now look at other things that you want to do?
I love it, and the reasons I love it are that it keeps evolving, and the other reason is that it's one of those things that here in London, in Silicon Roundabout, we can wave the flag. Actually, it is some of the most advanced tech in the world is right here in London, which is pretty cool. Part of that is because the UK has some of the most advanced adoption of e-commerce. That it's the highest e-commerce expenditure per capita in the world.
Is it?
Yeah,
Wow.
and by no degree of accident, it's also the highest amount of digital marketing spend per capita.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a good place.
How far ahead is it? Do you know this? Like just roughly?
I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but it was over Europe, crazy higher, like 2x.
Okay.
Although Germany and stuff are starting to move ahead.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago it was 2x.
Sure.
Over the U.S. maybe it's 10-15%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that because the UK consumer is more wealthy as well, has more money to spend, or they just get targeted and also spend more online?
Because of the awesome infrastructure, BT. No,
is it?
maybe not. No, the real reason is because it's, in my opinion, and there are lots of reasons why this could be, but it's a big enough country and population, but a small enough in terms of delivery. You can get stuff pretty quick. And then part of it is that as much as BT can be a pain and things like that, it's pretty wired country. Still slower than it ought to be and stuff like that, but not bad. And the third reason is that Google did an experiment here where they really subsidized agencies. And if you look at the U.S., brands tend to run their own digital marketing more than they do in the U.K. And the agencies are the pros, and they just do a really good job of it. And,
Interesting. It's London's always led the world in entertainment, and they've always been good at advertising and marketing. So it's nice to see them levering something up, from the digital side, like we're seeing in fintech as well,
right,
as opposed to trying to copy or trying to play second fiddle. Something we always talk about on this show. People that complain about the lack of exits and the lack of big public exits and cash generating exits that creates the next, the PayPals that create the next ventures, et cetera here. But do you think marketing and advertising is kind of one way where the UK can compete?
It is, and part of the interesting thing there is that you can. Here's why there are lots of disadvantages to be in London, but there's some advantages, and there really should be more exits, and we can talk a little bit more. We were talking a little bit before about some of probably why not, but
right.
Some advantages are, again, going back to the size and shape of the market. London doesn't have as much media as LA, doesn't have as much tech as San Francisco, doesn't have as much finance and advertising as New York, doesn't have as much, kind of government as DC, but it's all in one place, and that's powerful. You can create the buzz, with the press in London that reaches across all of the UK. You can get, it's still not as free flowing as it is in the States, but most, the easiest and best access to intelligent investment is here in London. You can get the quality of technology people, out, an investor in a couple of companies that are based in San Francisco or that were, and keeping your tech talent is just a real hassle. Facebook's vacuuming it up and paying lots, and they're negotiating over if they want wheat or corn tortillas on the free burritos. It's like, really?
That's hard
Whereas
to compete
here you
with,
got some
right?
damn hungry Hungarians and pretty smart Romanians and stuff that are pretty stoked to be here.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have that whole talent pool that's not restricted for visas and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last and obvious thing is the language, right? Companies I've been involved in, several of them, be they passive or active, they have this sandbox to work in here. It's not as big as the U.S., so it doesn't scale as fast. Nothing like it. But boom, then you get something that's working. You can roll into the States, right? Language-wise.
Have there been many successful UK to U.S. transfers? It's tricky, right?
There have, and there are, but I think a lot of them are work in progress. It's slow development still, right? But some of the ones that I'm invested in or friends with, you got Skimlinks, where most of the revenues are actually U.S. based, and a lot of their activities, but their home is securely right here on the roundabout. Conversocial, similar. They're really driving into, they figured out how to structure social media support for enterprises, and now they're rolling that into the States. Struck, which I mentioned, they've got the retargeting going over here, and now they're rolling into the States. All of these are kind of, A, B round kind of plays right now, but they are definitely rolling their revenues into the state side.
Your accent is very familiar, and we're all from North America here, and it's interesting because if you talk to an American, there's always a story why they're here, because you can't just roll up. I don't think Brits know that or Americans know that, but you can't just roll up here. You need to work visa and everything to get here. So I was wondering, what are you doing here? And second of all, you must travel to the States a lot and go to the Valley and go to the Alley. And what do you love and dislike about the London when it comes to the tech scene? You mentioned a few things before,
cool.
but first of all, what are you doing here? Or how did you get here?
It's kind of random.
Always is.
and it was random, and then it wasn't. I guess the first time I came here, I was in Brazil. I was pretty happy. The real crashed, the currency. I had another offer, so I was going to leave McKinsey and go and do something anyway, but I thought that would be a good opportunity to consider other things.
This is 90s.
This is 99.
Okay.
It was actually the end of 98, so the beginning of 99. And, my best buddy from undergrad was a VC here, and he said, man, there's money that's looking for entrepreneurs, and there just aren't enough here. Why don't you come over? Let's just figure something out. I was like, internet, 99, you could really feel the wave. You knew it was getting pretty ridiculous. I looked at California, and I'd been looking at the internet since 94, 95. That was my plan. I got kind of distracted into Latin America, which was interesting, but I'd always wanted plan to get involved deeper with the internet. And in California, it was just nuts. So I remember the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge was there was a .com startup, True Style, and they just couldn't find enough ways to spend their money fast enough. There was a blimp over a football game in San Francisco, and I'm like, of some unknown random startup, and I'm like, really? That's ridiculous.
Have you read the book Burn Rate? I don't know if you ever read that, but it was people would brag about their burn rate.
Oh, right.
And if it wasn't big enough, they couldn't get the investment because you weren't spending enough money.
Exactly. You gotta go all the way. You gotta go for it. It's crazy. And so we did the chat. We literally showed up. Our idea was to copy paste something from America, but it went through 450 ideas or business plans or companies that were IPOing or whatever, and I just didn't think they were credible. And if I look back, I think we probably overthought some things too. I mean, we often didn't do things because we thought the incumbents would come and kick our ass. And you look at it now, and they still haven't done some of it, right? We really should have done easier things. And in a lot of ways, we decided to do what we ended up doing, in part because we literally had a kind of a speech. It was like, we're going to do it because it's hard, and that way nobody else will do it. And it's like, let's do it with like a place with 15 languages and 7 currencies, and really make it difficult, just because that way nobody else will do it. And I was like,
so in retrospect, maybe better to keep it simple.
a little overthinking.
And just play the game better than them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just be faster, right? Like, I tell you what we ended up doing, which was, it's still the market leading business in what it does, which is industrial asset auctions online. So our idea was kind of think eBay, but bigger, right? I mean, big
B2B.
ticket items.
Yeah.
Okay. And so these were, some of the things we got to do. I was driving dump trucks that were the size of a building, and we're auctioning them off online, and cranes, but then also packaging machines, metalworking machines, things like that. And part of the reason was because we thought cars, car auctions, but that's just too easy, right? Somebody else, the incumbents will come and crush us. And it was pretty crazy that we ended up building our business up. And listed it in 2006, but I was looking in 2008, and they still hadn't really sorted it for the car business, which is so much easier, right?
Yeah.
But anyway,
How'd you get to London? I mean, like visa-wise and stuff. Did you, or should I not bring that up on the air?
I did a pretty classic mistake. Is I got to the customs, and they said, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just unemployed.
Oh, wrong answer.
That didn't go well.
Unemployed
so
in
then
a bomb is worse.
then I got slam, whoop, 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 and they talked to me for a couple hours, and finally it was like reasonably credible that I had enough cash that I wasn't going to be a burden to society. And then I got another passport. The nice thing in America, you can get a spare passport, and so all the markups I did in mine, I just didn't do, and then I just made sure I was gone every few months. It wasn't like I was being paid, so we just did the startup bootstrap, literally lined up on 3 browsers, credit card applications, and hit them all at once, so hopefully they wouldn't have the most up-to-date credit history, and levered up, put in some personal cash, and we put $100,000 behind the business to get it started between me and my business partner.
Wow.
And then we were just working in a friend's flat in West London, and then we started getting a couple interns. We had another idea. We're like, hey, you've done your business school internship at Morgan Stanley or Goldman. Now come and see how a real business is. And we got these great interns. We got 7 interns. So there were 3 of us and 7 interns, and they were awesome. And we were just cranking, and we had whiteboards everywhere and cables. And my friend came home 2 days early, and she just said, what the hell is going on here? And I was like, you're not supposed to be here yet. She's like, this is my house. Look, I'm going to take a walk, and I want this place the way it was in 20 minutes. Damn. And we had just heard from this other .com that had been backed by Atlas Venture that they had found some awesome space you could rent by the week in Truman Brewery, way out east. And so we literally didn't have anything else to do. We loaded up the taxi with all the computers and cables and came out, and then one person staked out the stuff while the other one kind of said, well, so is it true we can get this by the week? And some wacky Israeli that had bought the place said, yeah.
And that's right around the corner. And this is like 2000 or
99.
Wow.
So this was July 99. Yeah.
And how much was rent for a week?
I don't remember. I'm telling
They
you,
pay
the
you.
bathrooms didn't work. In the winter, I remember people had those gloves with the holes in the fingers because they were freezing and you could see your breath.
So was there any tech in the area at all?
There were a few of us. There were some trance music guys and kind of a ethnic-oriented modeling agency and 2 startups. One was called Click Mango, and ourselves in the building at the time. So that was the beginning of that tech hub. Yeah.
I was in the city then, and like, you would never walk up to Shoreditch back then. Like, you would never go. I remember, like, sometimes we would send kids to, like, the Rivington to get burgers, but, like, it was not an option to hang out. And people don't know, it's probably, like, less than a mile away. But it was just a neighborhood you wouldn't go into, even though it's, like, right next to the financial capital. And now, obviously, Shoreditch is a tech capital. But you've seen it then for 14 years evolve. Yeah. So what have you seen happen, and where's it going?
One of the things you learn is that up and coming is an awesome phrase, but it sometimes takes a lot longer than you think, and then all of a sudden it happens, right? And in order to not have a commute, we just found a place right next to it, which was this cool 1724 Georgian house that we had like 8 people living in. You don't get that in Millbrae or Mountain View, that's for sure. What we saw evolve was it went from, Spitalfields, which had the little card table kind of market, to really high end, lots of glass and concrete. And, in some ways that's a little sad, but it's also kind of nice. It's pretty stylish now. And I think it's gone from, a theoretically cool place to live, but you had to walk half a mile to get to an ATM, to a really awesome place to live. To me, I left there in 2003 and was surprised when I came back in 2008 at how much it had evolved. And what was missing about London to me was that New York sense of just bumping into people, having different kinds of people, different walks of life in the same space, in a kind of convivial place that you can talk to people, coffee shops, stuff like that. And I was really thinking about moving back to the States, and the evolution of East London being more of a convivial, close-knit place is definitely a lot of what's made me stay.
It's funny, we've heard that before, like density is actually a factor in innovation, right? And it's
Which is counterintuitive, because with all the social media and all the online meetings and stuff these days,
right.
And all there's these companies in the States that don't have a physical address, right? They're just collaborations. But everyone we've spoken to that sat there says that you need like a physical density of people and ideas in order to generate new ideas. You have to be like on top of each other and looking at each other. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think not every day, not all the time, but you have to have that sense of community, and that sense of community you initially get by spending time together, right? And then you can be a bit more spread out and communicate every day, but you can't beat that human vibe, right?
And where do you think we're going from here? I mean, is it kind of ramping, like you said? Is it kind of finally climbing, or do you think we've got a lot further to go as far as the area build up and stuff? I think the building you were in for a long time, you said, is going to be torn down soon on the roundabout. I'd love it if you even gave us a little brief history of the roundabout, because I walked around here for 2 years and didn't know what was going on tech-wise, and I felt like a real dork.
Well, I remember when I was living here, I thought, and here's the thing that kind of sucks to say, but it's a really ugly roundabout.
Oh, Jesus, don't get me started. And then they've built this luxury high-rise next to it, like the Bezier building. I looked at one of the flats. I mean, the top penthouses go for like probably $1.5 million, and it overlooks the probably ugliest roundabout there is.
In Europe.
I thought for years, I just love it if they could just put some turf over it.
Or a garden. Or
what is in the middle, though?
It's a tube station, really, right? I mean, you can go in there, but there are plans to redo the whole thing, and I think there are in like 5 years, and put a theater in there and all this crazy stuff. But anyways.
Well, that was and I think that's what's some people, some of my near and dear friends are both we're part of, or massive critics of Tech City, TCIO. But I think one of the best things I can do is really just make it a nice place to live and work, right? You get the good designers here and the programmers here who just want to be here, and a lot of the government stuff around visas and taxes have kind of let a lot of the natural factors after that do its work. But
so give them the wheat tortilla option.
Yeah.
Like things do need to be nice around here. You need to have decent facilities to attract people, right?
Yeah, and man, I'm telling you, like you look in San Francisco now, And the valley, which is where so much was developed, was it's really boring, man. And everybody wants to be in the city now, and
Okay.
on Market Street, and Mission, and things like that. And similarly, that's where here it's got a vibe. It stays alive. It's kind of interesting. So I think that's cool. But the building is pretty cool because there's a little history there, and that is where this whole kind of Silicon Roundabout came about, which was
When was that term coined?
I think it was '09, and I think it was a Telegraph article, something like that.
Okay.
And
So recent.
there was Moo.com and Last.fm, and about three or four, it was a handful, like maybe 6, 8, 9, if you really stretched companies, but those were probably two of the best known ones that were right around there. And somebody in the press kind of coined it that, and everybody hated it. And then,
Really?
You're just copying the valley. Why do you have to be like them? Why do you have to be like them? And who cares what the pundits say? People used it. People like it. It's cool.
Yeah.
It works.
Sticks.
And then Tech City, the government tried to rebrand it. It's Tech City. It's not the roundabout. That's too small. Screw it. It's the roundabout.
Because Tech City's like a greater area is what
Yeah.
they were trying to do with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked at that building as well?
I did.
You had-
So it was pretty cool because I'm lucky enough to be chairman of a company called Skimlinks, which Alicia Navarro and Joe Stepniewski started. And I was literally looking at the contract, and I said, well, this is really great, but there's a decimal error here. It's like £2.50 a square foot. And Latitude at the time was in Soho at paying about 55 or something. And they said, no, that's it. That's the intro rate. It doubles in 6 months. I literally stepped out of the board meeting at the end of that, called the agent, and moved in within 2 weeks. And because of the thing is that Moo was there under threat of being kicked out when they would level the building for 6 years, and then they finally moved out. And we were there for like 3 years. And if you can deal with the uncertainty of being shifted out, then it's great, and it's a great startup maneuver, I think. But the effects, and you're seeing it here, are that the startups and the artists that were finding these kind of cheap flats and stuff like that. There were a whole bunch of them, and then Edited moved next door, and Seacamp moved next door, and a lot of these places, you really start building that hub, and then you started bumping into, Mike Butcher of TechCrunch or Robin Klein, who's awesome investor, my hero, all these people, and you just bump into them, and you start talking business and pleasure, and you build these relationships, and it was because it was pretty cheap and pretty easy to get to. But now they're leveling it. They're going to put a big, expensive building there, and Shoreditch rents have gone up, and so things are moving. Interesting. Most of it's moving east, but some of it's actually moving, back kind of Clerkenwell. I like what's going on at Warner Yard now too.
Yeah, there's a bunch of seed places that are moving kind of back the other way. And so, do you think this area is going to get priced out eventually? I mean, do you think all the Mountain View companies are going to be here with like their headquarters, or do you still think it's going to keep, that kind of homegrown vibe?
I think it's already happening, right? But hopefully the companies are scaling to it too. And so Google put in their bid over in King's Cross, but if you're Cisco or any of these companies, I remember I was talking to the guys with Zendesk and Yammer, because the friends from the States, and where should we be? East. They looked around, it looks like crap, right? So they put it over in Soho. We can't get good salespeople if we're over there. Boom, a year later they moved over here because it's got the momentum, right? But when the Yammers come in, bankrolled by Microsoft, then it pushes the startup guys out to, Hackney or Hackneywick, or which is like the really funky stuff, or it's a natural process.
Yeah, and then we've been over to the level 39, and like that's kind of like the extreme area there, but there's so much more room to grow. Yeah. Kind of east. Now you've been angel investing for a long time, and I was just wondering, I don't know how that's gone, how you kind of manage your portfolio. Are you still looking for investments, and is it harder today than it used to be?
Cool, lots of questions there. First off, I really am thrilled because I got lucky. So with Go Industry, this 1.0.com, we managed to raise our cash just after the crash, a big slug of cash, and then we were able to be sensible, not listen to the prevailing theory that the faster you burn, the better you are. We used the money to kind of buy some companies, build up, and then we ultimately listed it on AIM in 2006. So that gave me a little bit of time. Thought about what I'd do, thought about moving back to the States, go to India, go to China, and decided that, there's a great community here, but it was nascent. There was lots of learnings, but, there were lots of good assets, and it was just one of the nicest things. You asked me earlier, when I go back and forth to the States, what do I miss, what do I like? And I used to beat myself up a lot, because, hey, the companies are bigger and they grow faster there. It's a true fact.
Yeah.
But when you are working in the web in San Francisco, you and whose army, right? I mean, big deal. There's not that community feel. Whereas here, people are really trying to help each other out. It is a community. You feel, it's like the old American TV show Cheers. You go in, everybody knows your name. It's nice. It's friendly. And there's something to that. And yet there's still some opportunity. And there are some companies like Spotify that, London borrows from Sweden and stuff like that, but that are building up and making names. But back in 2007, it was still kind of potential. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if I could be a very small part of that? And Saul Klein, just at the time, had started moving from these kind of weekly coffees to the idea of having an accelerator, a seed fund. And so I invested in that and got very heavily involved and was on the initial board there. And that gave me, great opportunity. Worked with Reshma, who was the CEO there, and got to see hundreds and hundreds of startups.
Okay. What was the company?
It's called Seed Camp.
Oh, Seed Camp. Yeah, of course. Yeah. We've got one of the guys coming up in a few weeks and Carlos is coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, for somebody who was new to the game, you get the important thing, I think, is you get pattern recognition. You see hundreds of these companies, you start seeing, founders and things that kind of work. And in that initial batch, I invested in Ed Spiegel. And again, it's names, it's people. It's the concept changed twice. It was collaborative consumption idea back in 2008 that just never had a chance. So he just pivoted a couple times and got something that was getting people in the flats. And he sold it. We couldn't get any VCs to put money in. So with 200,000 pounds of investment in it, we just had to live on revenues. And he made it work and sold it for 10 million. And when you only put 200 grand into something, that's a nice exit, but it's not the 200 million one that's going to fuel the roundabout, right? And he moved to the States. But other ones in that batch, Ryan Knotts with my builder, and that one kind of built up. And then through some of the Seed Camp pieces, I invested in 10 companies in total. One of them mine, so 9 not mine, and only one blew up. So some of them are still, they need to make their way, but I would say the main thing is you learn that it's about the people.
We keep hearing that over and over again.
It's our tagline.
Yeah, it's funny. It's our tagline, and I've asked people when how much is the product and how much is the person. When you go to invest in a company or hear a pitch, and I might as well ask you what's the percentage breakdown? Or I guess you just kind of answered it. I mean, what do you look for when someone comes and pitches you? Is it really just a job interview in disguise?
It depends on the phase, for sure. I think when you're talking super early stage, and for me, my quantums of capital are pretty small, so the only way I'm going to, get any interesting return is to go pretty early, where you're hopefully getting some pretty solid standout returns. And at a very early phase, things could change a lot, and you need people that you're trusting to be able to adapt and evolve. The later stage you get, the more that you're looking at traction, you're looking at client base, you're looking at that product, and the product's ultimately a result of the people. Right?
And did you ever want to get more involved in later stages? Have you ever thought, I want to be a VC guy? Or it's funny, we had Raj Ramanandi on here, and he's once it gets above 20 people, he gets bored. Once it gets to where you have a marketing plan or whatever, he gets bored. Is that you too?
I love it. I love seeing the evolution, and let's make no mistake. I'd love so anything I invest in to be Facebook sized or Google sized. I remember looking at Facebook back in 2008, 2009, looking at the team as they were moving into Europe, and I'm like, man, that must kind of suck to be, the appendage of an American company. And then you look at how monstrous they became, and the guys that were the people that were there early, and they're pretty happy. so being part of something much bigger, I think it can be awesome as long as it's a cool situation. But it is exciting in that early stage, and that's where a lot of my strength is. I'd say it's between companies I've built. I guess where I'm lucky is I've built from scratch a couple companies, and scaled up to 300 or so employees. Running Latitude was like 150 or something like that. So I'm happy with that initial stage, and I've got a decent amount of experience trying to help people get fundraising and stuff like that, and I like that. Then it's about HR and hiring, and then it's about going to market, getting that next round of financing. Ideally, it's revenues, sales, and then it's about structure and global expansion. All those phases excite me. So I can't say that I don't wish some of them grew to 26,000 people.
Right.
It could be kind of fun.
What am I missing, Colin?
Yeah, well, I guess, it'd be great. We talk about the people, and I don't really know the story of ICE or how that got going. And obviously you felt the need to sort of put some great people together and make, see what happens. So maybe you could tell that story a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. To be honest, it's not like it was a plan. That's a really intriguing organic story that really came from a lot of people. And when you get a lot of great entrepreneurs together, things happen, right? You don't have to kind of plot it all out. You get evolution and people chipping in. But back in 2009, I was trying to decide, do I want to go back and do another startup, or did I want to just kind of stay on the investment side? And I organized a ski weekend of a bunch of investors up in Verbier. And
Love Verbier.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Well, we had a ski trip every year when I was at ICAP in Verbier.
Oh, really?
So 5 years in a row, I just went to Verbier for the weekend, and that's all I ever saw.
Awesome. Come on back. I got a pad there for you.
Yeah. I've never compared it to other places, but it's up there, right?
It's some of the best skiing in the world, and then on a more superficial basis, it's south facing, sun shining in the afternoon. It's great.
Yeah, and a good vibe in the town, right?
Yeah, it's a walkable town. It's Swiss Village. It's cute.
Yeah, sorry, you were saying.
But anyway, and it was a nice weekend with a bunch of investors. And then, was chatting with a real new kid on the block in town, who was Josh March, and said, well, hey, can you help? I'd love to organize a weekend for entrepreneurs. And he chipped in, and the two of us were like, what are we going to call it? It's like, well, it's in Verbier, and it would be kind of fun to make it something cheeky. Well, let's call it Vice. But then we have to figure out what the acronym means. So we came up with International Conclave of Entrepreneurs, Vice. And it's evolved to be ICE today, which is...
Oh, the V was Verbier.
The V was Verbier.
Okay, good. All right.
And it was 29 entrepreneurs. And most of us kind of knew each other, but not amazingly well. And what we found almost immediately was that there was, and most of us had to be torn away from our work because we were all doing startups of various shapes and sizes, but mostly between kind of bootstrap and maybe Series A. But it was super cheap because of, most people just crashed in my chalet, and then we got one next door. But what people found right away was, holy cow, I'm spending all my days, bottling up so much stress because I got to pretend to the staff that everything's just fine and try to be, mature on the job and grow on the job and do a good job as the boss. But then I got to talk to the investors, and I'm going to make them think everything's just fine. But, and then, I go home and see my partner, and, I can't always bitch about work all the time, so I got to bottle that up too. And then all of a sudden,
You
here
have
are
to
these.
pretend at home that everything's just fine.
They say fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
This is the greatest breakdown of an entrepreneur we've ever had on the show. Like, this is what you get to do.
And the great thing was everybody, first off, nothing like some Jaeger bombs to really get the show on the road. And then second, people just really being able to be honest and just, this sucks and this crisis and this challenge and, and then people are like, oh yeah, I had that problem. Here's an idea. Hey,
Right.
Have you talked to these guys? Have you, tried this software? And, on the ski lift or whatever, you get a little bit of away time. You're forced out of your natural environment. And, really sadly, but quite pivotally, there was a tragedy. One of the guys actually, crashed and died at the end of the trip. A lot of us were already gone, but it was horrible.
Just like a tree or into someone else, or
The visibility went to zero, and they just got lost, and it wasn't like an active crash, right?
Wow.
But they got lost, and then it's a longer story, but that really brought everyone very tightly together, and you think about it, a year later, we're all dealing with our day-to-day stress. We're still pretty freaked out about that, and somebody said, yeah, it'd be great if you can do it again. And I was like, are you kidding me, right? And they're like, no, man.
it's like the last thing you would think you'd want to do.
Yeah. And I was like, first off, we're all just crazy busy. And second, how do we deal with how do we just process what happened, right? And they said, and it was a guy named Simon Proctor, actually. He said, well, I can help organize a lot if you want to do it. Sent out an email. And within half an hour, you had everybody, not quite everybody, but like 20 odd people were already back on the program. And, from there it went up to kind of 55 people who became really tight. And, and we really miss Rob, who died. But on the other hand, part of that was a catalyst to bringing us all really tightly together. And it's been unmatchable. I mean, we've had weddings and kids without weddings, and lots of great friendships and companies that have come together and companies that have busted up, and it's almost like having people people in your community get divorced and you work through it and everybody's okay, and you see the evolution. And back then, like I say, it was pretty scrappy, but now you've got amongst them were Michael Acton Smith, who was on his last chunk of cash, turning to his investors and saying, I got this new idea, which turned out to be Moshi Monsters. And you have Andy from Huddle, who also had pretty challenging situations that year, that now has become a great business, and Allie was there actually as well. Folks have, you really get a nice set of perspective. And some of the people's businesses haven't worked out, but pick them back up and they keep charging. And the big piece of it is everybody helping each other out and everybody caring about each other as people as well as their business. It's not your card is part of it, but it's only part of it, right?
Yeah, you said that. I think you said it's important for everybody to get to know one another and then be there for each other over time. And you stress like physical contact, don't you? Like let's really get together.
Yeah, and that's part of the, one of the problems is that we feel sometimes maybe it sounds like there are about 150 people in the group now, and it's mostly founders, but also some VCs and other kind of ecosystem supporters and journalists. David Rowan from Wired's pretty very helpful and interested. But the Dunbar number concept. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
If you could explain it really quick to the people.
Yeah, it's a vague number. Nobody knows what it is, but it's the point in an organization when everybody's part of a community versus being part of silos of different communities, right? And he estimates it's between 100 and 155 people. I don't know how he comes up with the number, but we've kind of stuck with it. because first off, you have to go on a trip to get to know each other. But then when that email comes through and says, hey, I got visa problems in New York. Anybody got any ideas? I've got this, is this term sheet term? Sounds a little wacky. Any experience with that? You jump and you help them because you're part of that community. So, we do try to phase some of the folks out that are less active and keep making room for more. And the application process isn't like, oh my God, you've raised 20 mil and you've done this. It's also very much. I think it can be most helpful for people who are just getting started, because you're suddenly in there with a lot of access to experience and knowledge. And whether the companies have become multi-hundred million plays or not, the people in that group have built up some experience and love to share it.
And you always have this annual ski trip? That's like the minimum event, or do you have other times where people get together? It must still be hard getting guys together for a ski trip in Switzerland.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
So the last ski trip was 80 people. So that was pretty cool. And we decided to kind of do some things in the summer. And we went to kind of Croatia and Sicily, and then last year just had this idea. Wait, what if we go somewhere where there's people on the other side, in tech? And so we went to Israel, and it was amazing. I mean,
Really?
we rolled out the red carpet. They're just, great technologists. Yossi Vardi was awesome. Meet the president of the country.
Wow.
One of the entrepreneurs that really made it decided, yes, I think you should see Israel by helicopter. So I was like, yeah, but there's 45 of us. Okay, a sortie of helicopters then. But so it's definitely kind of expanded at scale. But again, what we do is we really work to make it cheap, so that the bootstrappers can make it as well as the people that have done it right. And the next one, we're going to Africa, and we've also really been pushing to a new initiative, inspired a little bit by like Scott Harrison from Charity Water and a few others, to say, we've got all this energy and ideas and experience. How can we make that something that's impacting, impact organizations? So we're going to Africa the 15th to 24th of November. Yeah.
Okay. Do you do something with Scott, with Charity Water, or are you just kind of looking at his model?
Looking at the model, some of the people, and the power of ICE is actually the individuals all just doing their bits. And so Pete Ward from Wayne and Rika Rosenlund from Borrow My Dog are putting together a bash Thursday, actually, tomorrow. But for Charity Water, and we'll hopefully meet some of them down in Africa, but nothing super formal.
Okay. And if people want to become a member of ICE, how do they do it?
Gotta just, because it's a people network, get to know a couple of folks that are in it. The website is icelist.eu. Tell us a little bit about yourself in there, and then you got to come on a trip.
Okay. I'm going to hit you with our advice question. We ask everyone that comes on here. So here you go. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Alex Hoye, and where would you have been? At Stanford at the time, right? 1989 or something?
Stay there!
Oh, wait, stay there. Before the internet
Steve
existed.
Jobs? He knows what he's talking about.
Bye next. Yeah, and give him some advice. What would you tell that guy?
That's really interesting. I think, a few things. One of the things that I'm a little bit contra to a lot of the prevailing attitudes right now, which are, the idea is, you're 16, 17, 18, or 20, 21, 22, drop out, start your company, go right away. And everybody always filters everything from what they've done. And I'm doing that, so you can just ignore it if you want. But I'm like ridiculously blue chip, McKinsey, Harvard, Stanford, whatever. I think the values of those entities has changed, and maybe it's more Google or again Huddle or something like that. But I think it is good for people to go and work at another company and learn from what good looks like from somebody else. And so I did that in a lot of ways. I'm pretty happy with that.
As in like 1,000+ employee good?
I don't think it has to be a size of employee good, but we were talking about it a little bit before the show, and I think some of these institutions they harden you up. They make you, they challenge you. Everything's not, oh yeah, all ideas are good. No, sometimes it's bad, and you just need to be beaten up a little bit, right? So one thing I would say is that I wouldn't change, building a base. I would have probably said, I was looking at the internet in '94, but I decided, I'd go to the East Coast first, and then come back, and then I ended up in Latin America, and then in Europe, and it's been a great trip. I don't know. I think you got to experience it all.
Yeah,
it's hard to
just live through it.
Yeah, we get that. I mean, it's interesting. You can give that guy advice, but the guy giving him advice is the guy that lived through all that stuff.
Yeah, I missed a lot of that. Right?
Yeah, the failures too. On that same note, what's the best advice you've ever received?
I mentioned him earlier, but my favorite person in terms of companies and stuff is Robin Klein, and the advice he tends to have is all about really focusing on building something that will be unique and grow and invest in getting the right people. So that's nothing new or exciting. It's just hard to do sometimes.
Is that like don't focus on the numbers as much and focus on like something that really adds value? Is that?
I think and I was definitely a victim of it too, and probably focused on in Europe a little too often we do focus on the revenue to prove the model, and sometimes you do have to just get the numbers up to make it relevant. I think if I look at what I would do differently, make something that can be big. It doesn't matter if it, ideally it doesn't cost insane amounts of money so that you don't have to, sell your soul and all your equity to get there. But, make something that's going to make a difference. Be bold. I really do look at folks that have done things I haven't done for sure, and like Daniel Eck. I remember when he came and talked to me in '09 and said, we'll just do this, break into the music business. Wow, good luck with that, man. And look what he's done. Right? He was bold. Right? If you don't do something bold, you don't try, you don't win. Right?
You've already kind of given the last part of that question is the advice to the 20-year-old listening, and you've given a bit of it. And it's weird because like we do this show and we feature all of these successful people, don't we? And so like anyone watching is like, yeah, I'm going to move to the Shoreditch and start my company and quit school and all that stuff. So you kind of say, go ahead and get that Ivy League education or get that 3-year degree here in the UK and then go ahead and work for a corporation for a few years. I mean, is that kind of advice you give, or not such a bad option? That advice?
I look, if you're Bill Gates, you're an idiot to stay in school, but most people aren't. That's the word, right?
So many of those stories, though, right? Zuckerberg, Gates.
But as a percentage, they're so small.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, unless you're a super genius who's got something, like go work for someone.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not necessarily 1,000 person, but it's just have a boss.
Yeah.
First step. Right?
Okay, yeah.
That's been there and done that a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Who can?
But be
teach
very
you.
selective about who that is.
Sure.
Mm.
But even just being told what to do, because a lot of founders and younger kids, they've never been told what to do, maybe other than by their parents. So they go try to start up a company, and maybe, they leave the office at 4 one day. When if you had worked for someone who really rode you, you'd know that that's not going to work. That's not what's going to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, I think I think get the university education, but there's nothing that says you can't do some side projects, man. I started a couple of businesses in school and university, and I learned a lot from that. But I never confuse that with the fact that that wasn't my primary objective, and then get that experience with some people that are. That you respect. I mean, I ended up, my first job, I had gone to a speech that Jeffrey Katzenberg was giving, and he was just, he's a hard ass, and he It was, really bright and changed the way, Hollywood worked in a lot of ways. And I pursued every angle. I slipped my CV under the door of the interviewing people that were on campus that day because I'd missed the deadline and because I didn't think I really was interested in Disney. And then I found out, well, actually, these guys are pretty inspiring, and chased it. And I learned a lot from those guys. So, but what I would say, and I was just asked the other day, MBA, no MBA. I think if you want to go into the web, an MBA is a great place to hatch your next, a project, and that is a good place to build a business. But then just recognize you're probably going to have some debt, so you might be better off to just go straight. But I would work with another company for a little while, get some experience.
They say Harvard Business School is all about the network.
Totally.
Yeah. Is that totally true?
Not only. That's shortchanging it a little bit. I'll be honest. I went because I thought it would be a lot of fun, and it was. But I learned more than I expected to, and a lot of it has to do with articulating. You're forced every day for 200 days over 2 years to synthesize what a problem is, identify prospective solutions, and then discuss it. Right? And that's good practice. But the opportunity cost of it used to be that you had to go through that filtering process to get a job at a company that then you could work your way up into the Fortune 50, and now you don't have to. You can build your own business. And so I loved my MBA, right? And I made some of the best friends of my life, and I learned a lot, but I wouldn't say it's a necessity at this point. Yeah.
Did you do your MBA with a bit of a gap? So did you sort of do your undergrad, then work for a bit, and then do your MBA? Yeah.
And I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, because you actually learn more, I think, if you've been out there for 4 or 5 years or whatever, rather than just jump from education to education.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Alex, go ahead.
And I guess in terms of the advice thing, it is a little challenging. What would I tell myself when I was 20? It probably has more to do with girls than business, but
you can share that too.
It's all good advice.
Stay away from them. Don't marry them.
Yeah. But in terms of the Europe and how do we break out of the cycle of subscale companies and slow growing companies, and I think part of it you have to ask yourself and realize, and we look when we're entrepreneurs and staring ourselves in the eyes, recognize one thing, man. It's hard. It is really hard. You are constantly facing running out of money. In order to get scale, you have to start paying people, and then they're dependent on you, and it makes you grow up early. And I look around, and I'm working in a co-working space now, and it bums me out a little bit to see everybody gone. It's like 6:30. Well, I'm not, and I think you got to recognize that it's cool, but there's a lot of hard work and a hard slog to really make an impact. And it's not just hard work. You also need to be work smarter, not harder. But you need to work harder too.
Do you see that? Is that like if you fly to Silicon Valley and hang out in Mountain View and all that stuff, is that something that you notice right away, that people seem to be pushing it an extra gear or driving a little harder?
There is a bit more driving a little bit harder. I do think that there are countervailing benefits here, but I would love to see some of the work ethic just click up a notch here. But that's one reason that people with our accents tend to do well over here.
No, I'm really glad you articulated that. I think it needs to be said. We've heard different people say different things, Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we had someone who said he leaves by example. That was Steph the Hacker. And I understand where he's coming from, is that, there's a right and wrong way as a founder to drive your people, and to expect them to have your work ethic isn't always the best thing. But at the same point, you've seen a lot of different companies. So that's good advice.
Kind of like creative working, I think, is really, you put in the hours, but maybe it's, you're not 9 to 9, maybe you're 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And you hit the gym for 2 hours, grab a bite to eat, and then, crank out a few more hours with a fresh mind. I think that's sort of working smarter, not necessarily harder.
I also believe in weekends, and I didn't take enough when I was doing my 1.0.com, but, it is kind of nice in Europe that you can be harder working, and yet you're still taking more holiday than you are in the States and stuff like that. And I think it does keep you refreshed.
Yeah.
You can burn out pretty easy.
Yeah.
And Branson said, what would you do differently? He's like, hit the gym more. I think there's something to fit body, fit mind, right?
Definitely. Alex, what's next for you for the next year? Is Faction keep you very busy? Are you looking at new investments always? ICE must take some of your time. What's next on your schedule?
So three things. One is with Faction, I built it with my co-founder, Tony, out of excitement and passion about the product initially. And what I'm thrilled about, and the reason I stepped in full time last year was because that change in the way brands relate with people and e-commerce is totally changing all retail, and this is no exception. So building that with a lot more global, great marketing, great execution is taking a lot of my time right now, but it's quite exciting, and we've got a long ways to go, but we just shipped 20 tons of skis in the past 3 weeks globally, wow. And yet we got a long ways to go, and it's mostly about activating people digitally. So that's exciting. ICE is definitely important in that what I want to do is make it more valuable to the members, and then start getting some of that knowledge shared out to the community and be a little bit more impactful with the community. So that's a big goal. And then when it comes to investments, I've been starting to get the flow back of a few, and that's been great. But I also realize that the difficult thing is my personal bandwidth. You can only do so many things, and so in exceptional cases, I am putting bits to work, but I'm definitely not looking for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you kind of read your background, and it's like, Jesus, there's a lot going on there, and we all only have so much bandwidth.
All right, there's a point I should have said is
what's that?
Focus. I used to think I was great at multitasking, and I saw this quote that I really like. It's like, you're not multitasking. You're just doing a lot of things really badly.
Jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Yeah, focus. My last question is, do you watch the hit show Breaking Bad?
You know what? I saw the first episode.
Okay.
I'm the worst TV watcher ever.
Okay.
So I just don't watch it.
Do you watch it?
Yes.
He's Hank, Walter White's brother-in-law.
A much younger Hank, yeah.
I'm telling you, it's you. You're a character in there. Unfortunately, he was killed a couple weeks ago. Spoiler alert.
Shit.
And sorry. Did I just spoil it for you?
No, I've seen it, but I think
okay.
A lot of people.
Are you from the Southwest or somewhere?
I grew up between Idaho and South Carolina, so I used to talk a little bit more like this.
Okay.
But then I lived in California for about 7 years.
So it's kind of mixed around, probably like Southwest, kind of, to take all those places.
I lived in LA 3 years, hell yeah.
All right, well, you're a dead ringer for Hank on the show, so it was bothering me for the first few minutes, and then I got it.
You got it.
Anyways, it's a compliment. Alex, thanks so much for coming on. How do people get a hold of you? Are you a Twitter guy, or what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, I used to be a Twitter guy. In like 09, 10, I was doing it initially to stay in touch with my family because it was kind of cool. It's like you could do it for free, texts and stuff. And then I got into it and was running the agency. But part of my focus scheme, it was a little bit, you said Tim Ferriss was there, but, it was
information
like
diet.
trying to cut my information flow out. And I just haven't gotten back on that saddle much. But obviously you can DM me, and I get that. And so that's
if you follow them.
If you follow them.
Yeah.
So
that's
people,
true. They can't really just DM
No,
you.
then you're right.
That's what celebrities say. They're like, just DM me. And then you realize that Jay-Z's never followed me. I just got played.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's like getting the wrong phone number when you get home.
Ooh.
That's true. That's true.
It's all
there's actually a phone number that the girls can give out, or people can give out,
I heard this,
where you call and say, hello, you've just been dissed.
I've just saved you. Wow.
There's nothing quite like that feeling when you get the bum number. It's like something a woman will never understand.
That voicemail, they should give you something in return to make you feel better.
But if you stay online and complete the survey, we'll give you a voucher.
Yeah, exactly. $50 off your next dinner.
But just Alex at Hoye.org, Hoye.org. You can do that.
Excellent. Awesome. Thanks so much. Really good perspective. And thanks for being honest about that whole work thing. It's good to have someone say it, right?
Honesty is the key, yeah.
It's the best. Awesome. It's about the people here at Silicon Reel. We would love some suggestions, right? When it comes to guests and future guests, things like that, right?
Everything. Guests, suggestions. Like we mentioned, this is episode 14. We need help. So if you're interested in what we're doing and getting involved, reach out to us.
Yeah, we're looking for someone doing business development for us, either part-time or full-time. Just expanding our brand, getting a few more sponsors in, that kind of thing. So, but until then, we're going to keep doing this. If you're listening to us on iTunes, you can check us out on YouTube, channel Silicon Reel. And hit us up on Twitter is the best way to get in contact with us, right?
At Silicon Reel.
Awesome. Alex.
And I will follow you so you can DM us.
There we go. All right, cool. Alex, best of luck. It was just great perspective. So thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
Good times. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And doing some great work out there. You got to get the word out.
Yeah,
more and more.
It's fun too. So, all right. Take care, guys. Thanks.
What we found is that people who we connect with, guess what? They somehow they are more determined. They're more committed. They go the extra mile to find their way into the. So Fernando from Higher Life. Every gig I went to was at the back of the room waving at me. I was thinking, how did that guy do that? I have no idea how he did it. And so we actually really embrace and encourage that. It's really easy. We're very accessible, and the amazing thing is Twitter.